and welcome to Soul Food and Fuel for Your Life. I'm your host, Kenton David Bell, and today's episode is being recorded from my beachfront room in Puerto Penasco, Mexico. It's about a 5-hour drive from Sedona on the tip of the top of the Sea of Cortez. Great little fishing village that has turned into Arizona residents' beachfront. So today I'm going to talk about your relationship to your emotional body and how that affects, creates your reality. Now, the healing key for the emotional body is unconditional love for self. Unconditional love for yourself. When I first started going deep into the emotional body, which was about 10, 11 years ago, well, maybe 12 now, I got to admit, I had a tough time with self-love. I was in the process of doing some research on the topic of self-love when I ran across just a little article on the internet. This was back in 2010, I believe. And it was talking about the concept of self-love. And one of the ways to measure it within yourself, to gauge it where you are, was to look in the mirror directly at yourself, in your face, your eyes, and to tell yourself that you love yourself. Like this: Kenton, I love you. And to my surprise, I had a very uncomfortable experience doing this. Not only was my experience in that moment of looking in the mirror uncomfortable, but I was deeply embarrassed afterwards. Because here, I had been practicing as a spiritual healer for, close to 2 decades already. And here I am struggling with this thing, self-love. You would think that a fairly accomplished self-healer, transformational worker would understand this concept fully and love themselves fully. Well, fast forward to now, 12 years later, and I would say it's still something that I work on a fairly regular basis, is loving myself more deeply. As a matter of fact, my trip here to Puerto Penasco for a couple days is about that, self-love. I was bored at home. I was feeling stir crazy. We have the second surge of the Delta coronavirus. We're all feeling stir crazy at home, I believe. And I thought, the thing that'll do me good would be go to the beach and get in the water. Get some sunshine. Well, we have plenty of sunshine in Sedona, but get some sunshine while in the water, while specifically in the salt water in the ocean. The salt water I find is very purifying, and it's a form of self-care, of self-love to do that. So I developed an exercise back in 2010, 2011 to address this issue of self-love. And I will be giving that in a meditation form at the end of this podcast today. So we're going to start with a little bit of exploratory questions for you, and I'm going to go ahead and do them with myself. I love asking these questions of self. I love doing this work with others. Every time I'm doing it with someone else, with a client, or with you who's listening to my podcast, I'm also working on myself. I'm also going deeper into my own process around the self-love. Those of us, which is, I believe, everybody on the planet, we're all seeking love. That's what it's all about. When we get angry, we're really seeking love. We're saying we're hurt. We need some help. We need some love. We need our hearts to be touched in a beautiful way. Often when we are acting tough and scared, we need love. You know, love is all you need, I believe, for mop heads from the UK once sang, "All You Need Is Love." A very popular song. As a matter of fact, I think the Beatles, in many ways, their music exemplified that time, and even now, in a way, is timeless about love. And there was a lot of love in their music, as we all know. So we're going to just dive right into this. First of all, center yourself if you can here and drop into the heart. See if you can drop out of the head. When I say drop into the heart, what I mean by that is to kind of get you outside of the egoic mind that's always ticking away there. That hamster wheel in the skull that we all have. So take a moment and just say hello to the body, say hello to your heart. And if you want, go ahead and close your eyes. Close your eyes, and as you close your eyes, you'll notice your point of attention is still in the head, right behind the eyeballs. Take that point of attention and drop it in to your heart space, into the center of the chest. Now, when we drop into the heart space, we are dropping into the astral heart, or sometimes referred to as the essential heart. And this is a fourth layer in your field, the astral body. And we're just dropping in there to just get out of the head. That's the idea. Now, there's a lot of other exercises we'll do with that down the road, but today let's focus on the emotional body. So the emotional body, its etheric body is the second body off of the physical body. So in many ways, it's one of the more dense bodies. We have the physical body. Then we have the etheric template, which is like a grid, a structure, a template, that literally the physical cells of the body grow on that structure. You could literally say this is where the physical and non-physical meet. The etheric template and the physical body. Now, the second layer in your auric field is what we call the emotional body. The emotional body is a fluid body. It is not a structured body like the first layer. As a matter of fact, as you go through the layers of the auric field, which we are generally looking at 7 main layers, that the even number layers, like the emotional body, number 2, the astral body, number 3, the 6th layer, which is the celestial body, number 6, these are all layers that are what we call fluid bodies. The odd number layers, 1, 3, 5, and 7, are what we call structured bodies or templates. They provide the structure for those attributes at that level. Okay? And we'll go into that more down the road as well. But today the focus is on the emotional body. Why? Because it is so important in the process of deliberate manifestation. It is also, what we're also teaching here actually, is also the pathway to self-realization. So as you become more and more aware of each layer in the auric field and bringing your consciousness to it, to clear, to know, to resonate, to transform, and whatever else, it's through that process that you actually become aware and self-realized on all 7 layers, you see, on all 7 levels. Once again, a lot more about that down the road. But today we're focused on the second layer of the field, second layer out from the body. And it is a fluid body, so clairvoyantly it looks like a loosely shaped form of a human being, of the human body, with splotchy colors of different hues and brightnesses and tints and what have you. So there's often many different colors within the emotional body. Now, we don't want to assume that particular colors mean specific things, even though there is some correlation to that. Dark colors do not necessarily mean anything bad. For instance, a dark brown and kind of a deep forest green are some of the more comforting emotional body colors that I experience. I also love cotton candy pink in my emotional body. And we can learn how to generate these colors, these frequencies of energies that do help with mood, well-being, understanding, and leads to greater ability to manifest as well. So we're going to start here with this question to you. What is your relationship to your emotional body right now? What is your relationship to your emotional body right here, right now? For instance, take a moment and create your emotional body as if it was perhaps another person that you're having a relationship with. What would be the nature of that relationship? Is it close? Do you trust it? Do you keep your relationship with your emotional body at arm's length? Are you deeply committed and bonded with your emotional body? Do you understand each other intimately? Or I should say, do you understand your emotional body intimately? Do you fully embrace it? Or is it something that you reject fully? As a matter of fact, to date, I've only met one person so far who has a very comfortable relationship with their emotional body. Only one so far. Now, I'm not saying everybody has a problem with their emotional body. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is chances are your relationship to your emotional self, your emotional body, can probably be greatly improved. So go ahead and just sit in that for a moment. Think of 3 to 5 adjectives, if you will, that describe your current state of relationship to your emotional body. Like, I feel close. Oh, it feels very distant. I feel estranged from my emotional body. It feels like a distant relative that I haven't seen for years. I don't want anything to do with my emotional body. And everything in between, just whatever comes to mind. Be playful about it. Try not to be too self-judgmental about it. We're kind of get into how to work through some of these issues shortly here, but just observe right now. Just see yourself observing your emotional body. Now, after you've taken a few moments, you could even have shut this down, this podcast, for a few moments while you go in and meditate and really check in and be very honest with yourself. I don't want to say brutally honest because you're probably too brutal on yourself already, but being very kind and generous with yourself. You should have 3 to 5 adjectives, descriptions that kind of fit whatever you're feeling in this moment around the emotional body. And now as you reflect on these, ask yourself if these match any of your relationships in real life. For instance, if your emotional body and you are estranged, is there other places in your life where you can see a similar pattern? Or maybe you feel as though your emotional body is shut down. You've shut it down. You've pushed it away, repressed it. How do these choices, perhaps mostly unconscious, but nonetheless choices. How have these choices of shutting down the emotional body affected the rest of your life and relationships? Now, you might be wondering, well, why are we going over all this, Kenton? What's the purpose here? I'll tell you the purpose. The purpose is to get the emotional body flowing freely without any judgments, really, because the emotional body and the emotions are like the booster fuel for your projects that you're wanting to deliberately manifest. So there's a whole reason behind this approach. We're not just looking at it to clear up the emotional body, even though that is a result of this. But the real idea here is to get the emotions and the emotional body flowing so it can move. So you can also then learn to cultivate the emotions that you want in order to create more consciously and deliberately the reality you want to live in. And it is a choice. I remember it was probably about 15, 20 years ago, 17 years ago now. And I was living in Sedona at the time, and I went to a healer. And I don't remember his name. It's been so long. Big guy, nice guy, really liked him. And I remember he was a graduate from the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, which I attended for a very short period of time. But what he told me has stayed with me throughout all these years. And I find it to be very accurate, very true, and even more so, very helpful. And that is that emotions should be thought of like bubbles in a glass of champagne. They bubble up and they bubble out, and that's it. And yet we give so much meaning to emotions. You know, we will feel something strong, and, you know, if it is a traumatizing experience, what will happen is those emotions get locked up in our field for a long time. Traumas can be traced to mostly in the astral body, things of this nature. So we'll have a strong emotional response to something in the moment of a traumatic experience, a crisis. And if we don't release it at that moment, which many of us don't, what happens is it becomes encapsulated, usually within the astral body. And you'll experience that, in a sense, the pain of that over and over and over and over and over again. And it literally starts to, limit your reality. The more that we become unconsciously or consciously, but mostly unconsciously fearful of our emotions, the more we have a tendency to narrow our reality. As a matter of fact, you can find often those with a lot of trauma have actually created very small realities so that their traumas stored and encapsulated in the field, their auric field, do not get triggered. So really think about this. Really think about what we're saying here. So, and all of us have traumas, by the way. Everybody listening to this has some sort of trauma or another. And a trauma can be something that's seemingly insignificant at the moment when it happens. It could be a parent just, who's had a hard day, kind of snaps at the 5-6-year-old child. And the child takes it really hard. And in that moment, that pain can get stored in the child's astral body. Now, I'm going to give you another context here. When you see two dogs out of the street fighting, they'll be going at it, really severe, blood-curdling sounds and images coming from this dog fight in the street. Well, then when they kind of separate and they stop fighting, you'll notice that they start to shake often. And what they're doing, which most animals do, is they're literally releasing the trauma from that fight. So they don't carry it with them, which allows them to be much more present. Now, as humans, we have a tendency to shut down in those moments after a fight, after a traumatic event. And so those memories get stored in us. So this is, and as those memories get stored in us, we're then projecting them onto onto the screen in our field, thinking, that's the world outside of us. But in fact, it literally is the world that we're creating within ourselves and projecting outward, that the world becomes an unsafe place. And we start to act as if it's an unsafe place. So it curtails our personal freedom, our soul's freedom. It curtails our creative expression out into the world. So these are just some of the reasons, I would say probably the main reasons, of why we want to get in touch with our emotional self and why we want to set it free through certain exercises, practices, mindfulness. So as you're listening to all this, I want you to tune into the emotional body. The second layer ties into the second chakra. The second chakra is right above the pelvic bone and below the navel. The color is orange of the second chakra, but we're going to tap into the emotional body. And I want you to imagine in your mind's eye, for the sake of this exercise, that you're able to literally see your emotional body. I want you to put it up on like a TV screen, computer screen in your mind out in front of your third eye. Imagine a big white screen and throw your emotional body on up there. Just try this without questioning it. Most people will take to it right away. This is also learning clairvoyance. So you throw your emotional body up there. It's loosely shaped in the form of a human body. I want you to just look at it and feel into it and see what you notice. Once again, there's no right or wrong here. This is a purely discovery exercise. And just notice where there maybe feels like there's a heaviness or a concentration of multiple energies and colors that feel maybe enmeshed or entangled. Or maybe there's another area that looks very light and lacking of color and depth and tapestry. Okay, once again, no right or wrong. Just observe. Kind of go from the head down through the neck into the shoulders, into the chest, the back, down through the torso, down into the waist, the hips, the buttocks, the genital area, the legs, the thighs, the knees. So you scan the whole body. We don't mean the physical body, of course, we're talking the emotional body. It's a fluid body, touchy-feely. And just get to know your emotional body. If you think it's your imagination, that's fine. Let it be your imagination. Okay? Don't question the process. Just kind of go with it for now. What do you notice as you begin to look and feel your emotional body? What is it that you would like to maybe know more about you and your relationship to your emotional body? What is it that you would like to see differently without judging it, but like what would work better for you? What would benefit you if something was a little freer or a little less congested in a particular area? Once again, the idea here is to begin to free up the energies in the emotional body so that they can flow and move, transform, and express in a way that's going to serve you in your deliberate manifestation, creation of your reality. So I'm going to shift gears here for a moment. And this part of the episode here today of the show, I'm going to talk about emotions in a slightly different context, yet still incredibly important to recognize and to learn. And that is our reality, and how we feel about our reality at any given moment is very much contingent on the emotional self. And in many ways, what I've discovered over decades of working with other individuals is that in so many ways, emotions can act like a booster fuel, okay, to help us create what we want in life. When we align it with our thoughts and our desires and our intentions of how we are deliberately creating our reality, it's like a booster fuel. Now, on the other end of that, when we're in a reality that kind of repeats itself over and over again, the emotional self aspect can act like Velcro, meaning it can hold us to aspects of a reality that we find not desirable, that we find that it's not working for us. It's keeping us stuck. So it's usually an emotional component to that aspect of reality that is unresolved in you. Hence, you have a charge around it, or it's repressed. You might not feel it at all, in which case it's repressed. We have a tendency to put value on emotions, such as, feeling sad, grief, depression. Those are all negative things. To feel happy, to feel joyous, to feel, excited. These are good emotions. To feel lustful, often we think of as good in our society, believe it or not. But often lustfulness doesn't really lead to any long-term deep happiness. It's like a sugar rush. And there's many things like that we're addicted to, emotionally addicted to. Now, I'm also going to talk about another aspect of the benefits of working with the emotional body and getting it healthy and fluid and moving and vital. So your emotions are vital and part of your vitality. So I've noticed after doing this work for a number of years on the emotional body, exploration, processes, self-love exercises, that what's happened for me now is, in general, most of the time, I feel pretty darn good, up and down through my core, I would say. So in certain ways, I've kind of transcended the lower emotional self. I say lower because it is one of the denser bodies, being second layer off of the human body. Now, that doesn't make it less important. It's just kind of the nature of what it is. But what I've noticed is I can feel quite good. I feel centered. I feel happy, joyous, gratitude, moving through my day. And at the same time, I can have, let's say, some grief or some depression come up. I'll literally see it in my field and feel it, but I don't attach to it. So I'll feel really good, and yet I can see the depression, feel that, isn't that interesting? There's depression there, but it's not grabbing me. It's not taking hold of me. And then it just usually moves out within 24 hours, 48 at the most. So it's in the unattachment that these emotions are able to kind of just bubble up and out, just like bubbles in a champagne flute. Really not much difference. And that is pretty much the importance you want to put on the emotions as well. Now, we're saying emotions here versus these those are the emotions, the feelings in the emotional body. In your core, as you begin to develop more, that supersedes, that overrides that lower emotional self you see. Now, many of us know people who make decisions and choices solely based on the emotional body and nothing else. Well, that also kind of shows you where they are at. Now, that's not a judgment. Everybody is where they are at for different reasons, and they're evolving, they're learning. So somebody might be learning through the emotional self that making decisions based just solely on emotions is not necessarily a good compass heading for life. You know, things change and emotions change. Fall in love with somebody or lust, and then next week, next year, oh, it's different. They always change. So now we also know that emotions are a big part of the process of deliberate creation, law of attraction, all of that. How you feel about something and how you feel about your thoughts about what you're trying to manifest determines literally your life experience, your reality. So this is another reason. Get those emotions flowing. So let's go ahead and do what I call mirror, mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all? So go to your mirror, go to a mirror somewhere and look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself very genuinely, authentically, as clearly as you can be, that you love yourself. Look in the mirror into your own eyes, look at that face, appreciating who you are, and say, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And notice what your reaction is. Notice what happens internally when you do this exercise. Take little mental notes. You know, whoever and whatever work you've done around self-love, there's always room for improvement, for more. It's not that we're always broken, it's the illusion that we are. It's not, in truth, we're all whole and magnificent beings, way beyond what we could imagine. That's my story, at least, and I'm sticking with it. So do the mirror exercise, maybe make some notes, a few notes, mental notes, or even write it down a little bit, what you experienced during the exercise. Often, just bringing the awareness to exercises and processes like this begin to shift the energies, begin to bring healing, wholeness, transformation to it. So sometimes that's just enough in the moment. Okay, we're going to go into the last part of the podcast here today. And this is a meditation exercise that I have done off and on for some years. And I find it to be incredibly helpful with the process of deepening self-love into the emotional body. So once again, the healing key for the emotional body is unconditional love for self. Unconditional love means without judgment, without remorse, without holding back, without any caveats, any conditions. It's just pure unconditional love for self, just because you are. So find a quiet space. And I personally like doing this exercise laying down on a couch or a bed. You can do it in a chair if you want. You cannot do this driving, not at first, at least. Maybe if you get good at it after a while, where you don't have to close your eyes and tune in. Perhaps you could do it while you're doing other things. But at first, you need to give it your full attention, and it might be a little slow going at first, so keep that in mind. So find a nice, comfortable position. Once again, my favorite is laying down, head up a little bit. And you take one hand, right or left, whatever feels correct to you, place it on the chest over the heart in a relaxed manner. So you're going to be in this position for a while. Take your other hand and put it over the lower belly area near the second chakra or on the second chakra, which is the second chakra is above the pelvic bone and below the navel. It's right in that area. And I want you to just really relax. So both hands and arms and your whole body is very relaxed. And you're going to start saying a mantra over and over again to yourself. And it goes like this. Kenton, I love you. Kenton, I love you. It's okay, Kenton. I love you. I love you, Kenton. I love you. It's okay. It's okay, Kenton. I love you. I love you, Kenton. It's going to be okay. It's all right. You're a beautiful being, Kenton. I love you. So as you're saying these words of love, professing your love to yourself, feel it in your heart. Feel it in your soul, in your body. And allow yourself to visualize healing light running from your hand into the body, through the body to the other hand, and then back through the body to the other hand, through the heart. So you're creating a circuit in a sense. And just kind of imagine that in your own mind. As you imagine it, you do literally begin to create it. So don't think imagination is wrong here. It's actually the Kickstarter, so to speak. So allow yourself to use your imagination. And as you're creating this circuit through your body, from your hands to your heart, and everywhere in between that needs to feel this love and really connect to it, into the body, the soul, the emotional body, the second layer. Allow yourself to feel that love. Now, chances are as you begin this process, you'll hear negative things come up. Like, oh, Kenton, you are unworthy. Oh, Kenton, you don't work hard enough. You don't focus enough. Kenton, your life is a piece of shit. Lots of things like this can come up for you. You're not enough. You're not good. Whatever that is, let those things come up. As you hear and experience thoughts like this, send love to those thoughts. Send love to those beliefs. Now, as you do this exercise, it might take months of doing it before you start to notice a difference. It took me quite a while. I'd say probably a month or two of doing it, probably 7 hours, 5 to 7 hours a week. I'd lay there and just kind of in a meditative space, do this process. For a long time, those negative voices would come up, and I would just send it love, send it love, send it love. And then eventually what started happening is those voices became extinct. I couldn't hear them anymore, and I could feel a greater sense of self-love. I started to feel better about everything. Maybe you feel angry. I never felt angry in the process, but you might, and that's okay. Send love to the anger. Maybe you'll feel resentful. That's okay. Feel resentful and send love to the resentment. Keep loving the resentment till it goes away, and it will. It will go away. Now, I personally am a diehard. I will do exercises like this till the cows come home. I love doing stuff like this. I love going deeper. I love discovering more and more the true nature of who I am. So I invite you to do this as much as you see fit. It could be you do this for an hour a day for the next 2-3 years. And that's not overdoing it. Well, if it's the only thing you do, it might be. But my point is you can never practice unconditional love for self enough. It's the judgments that we hold about ourselves that we project out on others and the world. And it's those judgments that limit our reality, that cause the walls to grow increasingly closer together in our reality. We start to get boxed in. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast on the emotional self. And this is just really hitting the very tip of the iceberg. There is so much work that could be done with the emotional self, with our emotions. I am Kenton David Bell, your host, and you've been listening to Soul Food and Fuel for Your Life, creating the best life ever. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Aloha. Hi, this is Kenton David Bell. If you've enjoyed this podcast and the others, you might enjoy some of the work I offer, whether it's one-on-one personal coaching and manifesting, healing sessions, or perhaps one of the courses that I'll be offering soon, online and in person. Please get in touch with me either on my website, www.kentondavidbell.com, or www.kentonbell.guru. My email is kentondavidbell@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a blessed day and much love.